Thank you, song leaders. Thank you for being part of our song service. I enjoy song service. I do. It gives me a little bit of a break through that week as far as preaching goes, but I enjoy just singing. I'm not good at it. The Lord didn't say I had to be good at it. He just said I had to do it. Amen. I enjoy doing it. I was just sitting there thinking, I have a thing, I did it years ago, worked it up, and we may try it some night, not necessarily on a singing night, but you go through the life of Christ in song and scripture reading. It's a very moving service, and we might do it just some night. Sit down with song leaders sometime between now and the next 15, 20 years, and we'll get that. So, I was in the 6th grade, and there were several of my good friends in my classroom in the 6th grade. We went to a school that is no longer there, K.D. McCallum School, for the 6th grade in Milan, Tennessee. And the 6th grade playground was in the front. And this was an old building, but the front yard was very, very long. There were some playground equipment close to the building, but then there was a large yard beyond that till you get to the road. And our teacher would let us boys go down beyond the playground equipment and play football every recess. And we would go. And the argument that we had was not in playing the game, but was in who was going to pick the teams. And that was always the argument that we had. But it's always interesting because we had two, probably for our age group, of the best athletes in our class at the same time, Tommy Hopper and Tim Knight. And then we had some other boys that were very good that were also there at the same time. And then I was there. But we always, in picking sides, no matter what side you got on, you wanted to be on what you thought for that day was the best side. That was important. Now, it's not that we did anything, because we played, and as soon as we went in the building, that game was long forgotten. But recently, in our study of the book of Hebrews, something kept catching my eye again and again and again. And that is the thought that in picking sides, Jesus is on our side. We want Jesus on our side, but we want to know who exactly is on our side. Because, sometimes in recess, this one would say, well, I want this one, and this one would say, well, I want that one, and then you went back and forth until finally, when at the end, what did you have to do? Well, everybody that's on my team, come over here. And everybody that's on my team, come over here. When we think about Jesus, says, okay, I'm on your side. And to be on Jesus' side, have you ever thought about, if you go through the book of Hebrews, and you go through several passages in the book of Hebrews, it's quite interesting. In Hebrews chapter 2, verse 17 and 18, it says that he had to be made like unto his brethren, that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to God. He had to be made like his brethren. Why? So that he would understand what we went through. The King James Version, that was the New King James, the King James Version says it behooved him to be made like unto his brethren. So that he would understand. Now, that's not to say, first of all, that we have to, some would say, well, if you're going to talk to the sinner, you have to do the sin in order to understand where they come from. No. You don't. But Jesus became like us so that he would understand. And so he understands doubt, despair, grief, death, heartache, hurt, thirsting, hungry. He understands those things. So Jesus on our side, first of all, understands. But then in Hebrews chapter 4, if you're there in the book of Hebrews, and turn over to the 4th chapter, it says that we have not a high priest which cannot be touched with the feelings of our infirmities, but was all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin. We have a Jesus that on our side not only understands us, but is able to sympathize with us. The idea of a high priest is interesting. What does a high priest do? Well, a high priest was, first of all, in charge of offering the sacrifices. The second thing that he was in charge of was all the priests and their functions. The third thing that he was in charge of was sitting, if you will, at the gate and determining the civil problems that were going on. He was really, in many ways, you could say he was the one over all things from a religious aspect. Now, what does the Hebrew writer say? He says, we have a high priest who cannot be touched with the feelings of our infirmities. He was in all points tempted like as we are. You see, he can sympathize. Now think about this. He understands and he sympathizes with us. Well, why is that so important? Well, if you go to Hebrews chapter 6 and you look at verse 19 and 20, it talks about hope we have as an anchor of the soul, both sure and steadfast, in which we also enter into his presence. And then it says, verse 20 is interesting because it says, wherefore he, the forerunner, has entered and has entered into heaven for us. The word forerunner there is interesting. It literally means a scout. Now, scout can mean several different things. He's not talking about a Boy Scout or Girl Scout, if you will, but he's talking about somebody that goes before everybody else and makes sure that it's safe to come and to go. Now, the Hebrew writer says we have hope. We have hope that becomes the anchor of the soul. The anchor, through time, has been the symbol of hope. We have an anchor, the idea that fixes us steadfast and firm. That's the anchor of the soul, both sure and steadfast. That he's our scout that runs before us to make sure everything is safe. You see, he's going to intercede for us according to Romans the 8th chapter and verse 34. Now, combine that with one last thought. Hebrews chapter 9, the Hebrew writer says that he has entered into the holy place, not made with hands, to be at the very side of God. What do you want on your side? To plead your case for you. To be in the very presence of God. It has already paved the way, but is in the very presence of God now to make intercession for you. Now to plead your case. Well, I want somebody that knows and understands. Yep. Hebrews chapter 2. I want somebody that not only knows and understands, but he said he can say, I've been there, I felt that. Yep, Hebrews chapter 4. Well, I want somebody that really knows that the way that I'm going is safe. And that I'm going in the right direction. Yep, Hebrews chapter 6. And I want somebody that can talk to God for me about that. Yep, Hebrews chapter 9. You see the thread that runs through there? What a beautiful passage, beautiful thought. Who's on our side? Well, Jesus. Is that to our benefit? You better believe it. We're picking sides. That's who I want on my team. And that's whose team I want to be on. This evening, if you're not a New Testament child of God, or if you're an individual that needs to come and rededicate your life, our prayer is that you'll come while together we stand and sing.